In the quiet heart of Florida's wilderness, on a sunlit morning in June 2017, something horrifying unfolded. A fully grown white-tailed deer, healthy, graceful, and completely unaware, was caught in the deadly embrace of a 20-foot Burmese python. No one saw it coming. No one was there to help. But what happened after that moment left even seasoned wildlife experts speechless. You think you know how this story ends? You don't. Because sometimes, nature writes a twist you never see coming. And this twist? It wasn't just shocking. It was miraculous. What force interrupted nature's most brutal law, the law of survival? And why did one small act ripple through an entire ecosystem? Hit like, subscribe and let's go. For years, the wetlands near Collier County, Florida, were home to a quiet rhythm. Deer grazed at dawn, herons skimmed the water's edge, and the cicadas hummed their steady lullaby through the dense mangroves. Among the regulars of this wild ballet was a young buck, just over 2 years old. Locals had seen him often, slender, alert, always moving with that mix of grace and caution that only wild things know. He drank from the same muddy stream each morning, following a trail worn soft by years of hooves before his. Nothing ever changed here. The land had a way of staying still, until it didn't. That week, the air felt heavier. The birds were quieter. And deep beneath the underbrush, something had started to move. Something that didn't belong. Something waiting. It started with silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that presses against your skin, thick and unnatural. The buck had returned to the stream, like every other morning. But this time, the frogs weren't singing. The herons were gone. Even the wind, usually playful in the trees, was still. His ears twitched. He sniffed the air. Something was off. A faint rustle in the underbrush, too slow for a squirrel, too smooth for wind. He froze, muscles tight, heart pounding. But nothing emerged. Just stillness, and then, the water beside him trembled, just once. Barely noticeable. He backed away. Slowly. Eyes wide. But whatever had stirred beneath the surface, wasn't finished. And deep in the brush, 2 golden eyes opened. Watching. Waiting. This was just the beginning. The next morning, the buck didn't go to the stream. Instead, he lingered at the edge of the glade, ears swiveling at every crackle in the grass. The sun rose slower, or maybe it just felt that way. A strange scent hung in the air, musky, foreign, like wet leather and decay. That rustling sound had returned, only this time, it didn't stop. It moved in wide, deliberate circles, never too close, never too far. As if something was testing him. Watching. A fallen bird, untouched by predators, lay nearby, its body limp, its eyes wide open. He approached, took a cautious sniff, and recoiled. No blood. No bite. Just stillness. The forest around him began to breathe differently, as if holding something in. Something waiting to exhale. He wasn't imagining it anymore. But still, he stayed. Not knowing that with every passing hour, the danger was drawing closer. On the 5th morning, he couldn't ignore it anymore. The pull toward the stream was stronger than fear. Step by step, the buck crept forward, each hoof pressing gently into the soft earth, each breath shallow. The world was hushed, like it knew something he didn't. And then, he saw it. A massive, winding shape, coiled near the edge of the bank, half submerged in mud and shadow. Not a log. Not a root. A python. Motionless, but awake. Its eyes tracked him, unblinking. Nearby, the carcass of a raccoon lay folded in half, like a discarded toy. The buck froze. This wasn't a visitor. It was a predator. A stranger to these woods. Introduced by man, but left to thrive unchecked. And worse, this wasn't its first kill. It was hunting. Deliberate. Silent. And he was next. What was this creature doing here? And how many had already vanished before anyone noticed? It wasn't just one. As the buck cautiously retreated, his path led him to a clearing where the earth had been disturbed, large patches of flattened grass, bones scattered like broken twigs, and the scent, stronger now. He wasn't the first to be hunted. And he wouldn't be the last. Somewhere, a herd had vanished, quietly, cleanly, without a trace. The invader was not alone. Burmese pythons, released years ago by careless owners or hurricane-damaged facilities, had found a home in this fragile ecosystem. And they were multiplying. Unchecked. Invisible. Until it was too late. Panic flickered in his body. His forest, once predictable, had become a trap. He wasn't just running from a predator. He was standing in the middle of a silent invasion. And no one, not even the humans, seemed to notice. Or worse, they didn't care. By dusk, the buck had no more paths to run. The forest closed in behind him, familiar trails now laced with shadows and silent watchers. And then, the strike. Fast. Brutal. The python exploded from beneath the underbrush, jaws unhinged, body a ripple of muscle and instinct. Coils wrapped around the buck's torso before he could leap. The air left his lungs. His legs thrashed wildly, hoofs tearing the earth. No help. No escape. Just pressure, rising, relentless. In that moment, he had to choose, surrender to nature's grip, or fight with every last instinct he had. Eyes wide with terror, body trembling, he braced his neck against the tightening hold. Above them, a hawk circled, screeching once, sharply, as if warning the world below. This was it. The moment that decided everything. But what happened next, no one could have predicted. His legs slowed. The pressure around his chest grew tighter. Bones strained. Vision blurred. The forest faded into a wash of sound, the thump of blood, the whisper of leaves. He was slipping. And the python, cold and patient, tightened with every heartbeat. This was the end. The young buck's body went limp. For a breath. Maybe two. But nature, unpredictable as ever, had one more turn to play. In the distance, sudden crashing. A wild squeal. Then pounding hooves. Not his. Another deer, older, heavier, burst through the trees, charging straight toward the writhing mass. In one desperate slam, it collided with the python, breaking the coil. The younger buck fell to the ground, gasping, battered, but alive. The python recoiled, stunned. And for the first time, it looked vulnerable. The forest hadn't abandoned him. Not yet. The buck stood shakily, legs trembling but heart pounding with something new, not fear, but fury. He had been prey, but not anymore. The python, disoriented, slowly uncoiled, its tongue flickering in confusion. The older deer didn't wait. With one final charge, it drove its antlers into the ground beside the serpent, not to kill, but to send a message. A warning. And the snake, for the first time, backed down. It slithered into the underbrush, wounded in pride more than flesh. The forest exhaled. Birds returned to the canopy. The air moved again. And the younger buck, scarred but breathing, looked toward the trees, where a small herd now stood watching. He wasn't alone anymore. Somehow, he had survived the grip of death. Not because of strength. But because something wilder than the python had stirred that day, unity. Instinct. Hope. Weeks passed. The scars on his body faded, but something deeper remained. The forest felt different now, not just wilder, but wiser. Paths once traveled blindly were now walked with purpose. And every sound, every shadow, was a reminder, survival isn't just instinct, it's connection. The buck stayed close to the herd, no longer alone, no longer unaware. The python? Still out there. And maybe next time, it won't back down. But something changed that day, not just for one deer, but for an entire ecosystem. So now ask yourself, how many silent invasions are happening right now, in places we don't see? And when nature cries out, will we hear it? Or will we only notice when it's almost too late? If this story moved you, hit like, share it with someone who cares, and tell us, what would you have done, if you saw the coils closing in?